G'day guys, ZiggyD here in the Division beta. It's closing down in a couple hours, so I thought I'd give you guys a quick look at my gear. It's been requested a lot to show off my gear on stream, so I thought you guys on YouTube might want to check it out as well. I played a crap ton of this beta, probably 30-40 hours over the 3 to 4 days, so not too bad. Not too bad. I was basically in between bursts of playing and sleeping. There was nothing else that happened, so it has been a pretty good time. I thoroughly have enjoyed myself and spent quite a bit of time min-maxing out my gear. I didn't do too much server hopping. You can change servers using the party system to be able to check different vendor respawns, and that's probably the way you would go about getting like all purples. So I didn't do too much of that. So I haven't fully min-maxed, but the items that I have got what I would call the legitimate way, as in actually just kind of farming them without doing that like server resetting constantly, just to basically vendor farm, I think is pretty damn decent overall. When I first started this, so let's talk about like main stats first. When I first started this, I thought, let's go glass cannon, right? We'll get the jumper people and we'll wreck them. You know, we'll get to like 6-7k primary DPS, and I had about 1600 health, and it just doesn't work. That does not work in this game. It seems like the best way to play is to have at least a balanced approach, if not being very tanky. So I found that at least 4k life here at level 8 in the beta, so stacking a good amount of stamina on gear, having 2-3 items with stamina on it, I felt was pretty necessary, because even if you get the jump on someone, typically they could turn around and, you know, a couple shots and you were dead with 1600 life. Main stats in this game, firearms, stamina, electronics, make a huge difference to each of their respective things. Like a tiny bit of extra stamina gives you a massive amount of life. So you can see here, if I trade this one out to an electronics, you can see I dropped down from, so this is only, the one I have equipped right now is 31 stamina, and if I change out here, I drop down from 4200 to 3400, so almost losing 1000 health there, which is a pretty big deal. So those main stats make a huge difference to your overall survivability, and I had a much better time in PvP once I got over about 4k life, and I was near 5k for a while, and I felt like that was a little bit of overkill. At that point, I was quite happy to trade off some primary DPS. It is quite possible to be a firearm stamina or a stamina electronics build. As a solo player, going stamina electronics and just using the grenade launcher, you can actually one-shot a lot of players if you stack enough electronics, unless they're like stacking 5-6k HP, which most people aren't quite that high, so you can actually one-shot most people, and if not, finish them off with one of your regular weapons. So that is actually reasonably effective. It's a little gimmicky though, and any sort of like party situation or sustained fight, then you're mostly going to be a bit of a support character. I can definitely see long-term though, once you have more abilities open up, because we only had, you know, the couple basic abilities here to play with. We only had basically 4 abilities to play with here. Once you have some more of these open, turrets, you know, the Seeker grenades and things like that, I can see ability power builds playing a pretty decent role in this game, because there is a significant bonus here. You can see here, the base damage of this grenade launcher is 1600 HP, 4k HP with my skill power. My skill power is decent, but not like as high as you could get it by any stretch. I've only got a little bit of skill power on here, right, on this one item, and the rest could have skill power on it, and you could reach pretty obscene amounts. It's worth noting though that that amount there, that 4k HP, doesn't seem to be the actual damage you deal to enemy players. There seems to be some sort of PvP scaling effect, which I'm going to have to look a little more into. So that's kind of my rundown on like stat distributions and builds and things like that. Let's take a look at my defensive gear first, and then we'll take a look at my actual weapons. So I did actually have a purple vest, but it was a electronics. So in the quest to getting more health, I basically just ended up swapping out to a health chest. Chests, didn't really find too much usefulness there. You can see the major attributes typically don't contribute that much, so it becomes all about just picking the primary stat on the chest slot. I didn't really find too much on the chests that make too much of a difference. Things like exotic damage, resilience, yeah, I didn't really find any particularly major usefulness there. Things like ammo capacity is just your overall ammo capacity. It's not like magazine size or anything, so none of these really particularly that good. The damage to elites was kind of nice when farming the hospital, but it doesn't really make too much actual difference. So basically just rocking the HP. It's important to note as well that armor, although it does make a difference, it's basically like this amount of armor is like 1-2% extra damage mitigation, so compared to the stamina, it was the way to go for me, so I basically just equipping a stamina chest. The masks can be a little more useful. Again, I just went for a stamina one here. The health on kills, kind of nice, a 5% heal every time you get a kill. Very nice in PvE, and doesn't make too much of a difference in PvP. The other ones I got here, nothing too major. Scavenging is interesting, allowing you to get more item drops. And you can get a little bit of extra health and things like that. Basic sort of stuff there. Nothing too exciting that I found on the mask. Knee pads, I didn't find too much in the way of knee pads, so just rocking a crit damage one here. You need crit chance stacked on your gear for crit damage to make any difference, so I didn't actually end up, that's not too useful, but I just didn't end up finding too many knee pads. Backpacks are actually potentially pretty useful. There's two things you can get on backpacks that are very nice. You can get skill power and skill cooldown reduction, so either of those are actually very useful. So I'm rocking this one here that's damage with the 334 skill power, and unlike HP and where it's not much of an actual difference, like you're talking like 100 HP or something compared to like the 1000 you get for, you know, the main stat, 334 is actually a pretty significant difference. That's close to what you'll get from stacking some main stats. So 334 skill power, even though my electronics is quite low at 77, that brings me up quite a bit. So that means my grenade launcher, things like that, are doing actually quite a good amount of damage, and my heal is healing me more. Once you get a large amount of HP, having that extra skill power makes that heal much more powerful, and that's actually pretty useful. So that was a pretty nice backpack. Pretty proud of my gloves. These are pretty damn nice. I got pretty much the perfect DPS gloves for an assault rifle build. We have damage, crit hit chance, and assault rifle damage. Perfect. Can't really ask for much better than that. Gloves are your primary damage slot as far as the defensive gear goes. You can get a lot of different types of gun damage additives, so shotgun damage, SMG damage, so on and so forth. Crit chance, I find the balance of crit chance plus your main thing. So if I'm rocking SMGs, SMG damage plus crit chance is the way to go. So pretty nice SMG gloves here with the HP instead of the damage, but that one's pretty much perfect specialized DPS gloves right there. So the only thing I really could have done better is to get the same thing in purple with a little bit better stats. So pretty happy with that. Very happy with the police holster I managed to get. The major attribute is nothing too special, just the 24 armor, but I got the tri-stat purple police holster. The holsters are usually 2 stats, like on the blue ones, the specialized, but if you do get the superior, you can get all 3 main stats, so that's pretty helpful, because as I said, those make a pretty huge difference. So let's talk weapons then, the most exciting part, now that we got the kind of, you know, the not so exciting armor out of the way. Of course, rocking the Caduceus. Who isn't in the beta? This is the strongest, highest DPS weapon. This is a legendary assault rifle, which can be found, and this should be, I imagine this will be the same at launch, but it can be found in the safe room here in Dark Zone Area 2. So just up in here in the map. So if I zoom out for you guys, it's just in there, and in the beta it was purchasable from that safe room. Don't know if that'll change at launch, but worth checking at launch when you get there, because if you only need to get 3,000 Dark Zone cash, which is basically killing a couple of extra rogues, maybe opening 1 or 2 chests, is going to give you enough cash for that. Doesn't take too long to get, and I can see this based on the weapon scaling I've seen so far, you know, in the 4 to 8 period, and also checking out weapon DPS at level 20 in my hands-on at Sweden. I can say that this weapon, the Caduceus, will basically carry you for like the next 5 levels if you do make the effort to pick it up in the Dark Zone. So very nice to get. Huge DPS, extremely accurate, and very good horizontal stability. It does have a lot of vertical muzzle climb. I can show you that here already. So if I fire in one position, not moving my cursor, you can see it's got a lot of vertical instability, but that's very easy to counter with mouse movement. And you can see I can hold that pretty steady. But where it really shines, of course, over long ranges is those 3-shot bursts. It's just incredibly accurate, very, very high damage. So let me go over what I'm rocking mod-wise on this, because I actually have pretty close. I spent a lot of time, although my defensive gear maybe not so impressive, I spent a lot of time on my mods and making sure that these are optimized, because I actually find the weapon and mod system in this game really very interesting. I think there's a lot of potential here. It's actually quite exciting. So I'll show you what I'm rocking here. We've got optimal range headshot. Optimal range is in most cases, unless you have a very long range weapon, a damage boost, because what happens is as you get outside of your optimal range, there's basically a damage drop off every meter outside of your optimal range. So increasing your optimal range just increases your damage outside of that. And if we go to character here, we can actually see what the optimal range is. We can see our range is 64 meters. So anything outside of that, which is not that far, is going to be getting a damage drop-off, and that's either going to lessen the damage drop-off or completely remove it if it pulls the enemy within of optimal range. So range is nice, and you can't really go wrong with the headshot damage as well, because typically with such an accurate assault rifle, you're going to be going for those, you know, that triple tap, you know, that 3 burst fire into the head at long range, and just the auto fire around the head and chest at close range, and that 5.5% extra headshot damage is a very nice bonus. So that hollow sight, pretty much perfect. Again, perfect. The only thing you could really do better is to get like a purple one with the same stats. Extended magazines, also amazing. Magazines can be very good. Magazine size, so that gives me an extra 7 rounds over the base, and 10.10% rate of fire, a massive DPS boost. And a good alternative for this one is to go for a weapon damage magazine size if you can. Reload speed not as useful. I like weapon damage magazine size or rate of fire magazine size. You can of course go for crit chance, but I think rate of fire or weapon damage are far preferable to that. And you can see, like, although the tooltip DPS in this game is extremely misleading, don't trust it because it factors in way too many factors that may not be relevant for your weapon. Like, for example, accuracy or stability or reload speed can affect the DPS, and those might be misleading. Like, if you ever use a 100-round, magazine LMG, then reload speed will give you a massive DPS increase, even though it's not actually going to be affecting your DPS, because you're never going to be reloading while trying to DPS something, except maybe some squish, like super tanky bosses in PvE, high-end PvE or something. So DPS, don't trust this too much, but you can still see that there is a massive DPS boost from rate of fire, and that is actually a real DPS boost. You're basically boosting your pure DPS is your damage per bullet times by your fire rate. So 10% increased fire rate is massive. So very nice magazine there. This underbarrel here, the vertical grip, is pretty much optimal for this weapon. As you saw, there's no horizontal instability, so that means if you could fire something like an AK-47, when you fire it'll veer off to the right like that. Some weapons will bounce left and right, like some SMGs and things like that. This, when you fire, just goes straight up. You know, there's almost no horizontal instability. So horizontal stability is unimportant, but regular stability gives you more stability for burst fire, so there's less muzzle climb, makes it a bit easier to sustain. And then initial bullet stability is very good for burst fire. You can see if I do these 3-round bursts, then it's very easy to maintain firing on the exact same spot over time. So the best thing to go for is definitely going to be that vertical grip, because that gives initial bullet stability plus regular stability. So this means you're getting 9.5% stability over that kind of 3-round burst, right? Because by the time that 3rd round hits, you're going to be still, pretty accurate. But it's around that 4th round where you'll start to bounce around too much. But this one here, this combined stability is really nice for burst fire like that. Makes it much easier to hit targets at longer ranges. Means you're going to be doing a lot more damage to enemies in PvP that are right down the street. And that's what you need. That's what you need. Suppressors, there's not really too much you can do with this. If you can get some like crit chance or something going on, that's okay. Horizontal stability, again, not super important, but going for like 3 crit chance is not too bad. At the moment, I'm just rocking the 2% optimal range. Reduced threat's only really useful in PvE, obviously, but probably going to be that crit chance is probably going to be the optimal one there, that 3% extra crit chance. And that is because, on top of that, we also have, if we actually look at the weapon talents, critical hits with this weapon heal you for 0.8% of the damage dealt. So the more crit chance you get, the more healing you're going to get as well. So rocking that crit chance muzzle is not a bad idea as well. The other talents on this, performing a headshot reduces skill cooldown by 2%. It's like such a small bonus, but in PvE, like headshotting a boss over and over again, that could refresh your skills pretty often, so not a bad one. And killing a target removes negative status effects. It seems more beneficial to PvE because you're not typically getting kills and then needing that refresh. But in PvE, there's a lot of like flash grenades happening and stuff like that will clear up. So that's not too bad. You do need to get 100 electronics from that though, which is not something I wanted to do, which is why I'm using neither of these 105 electronics. No thanks. My secondary weapon, which saw a lot of use ever since I got it, was the military Scar H. This is a marksman's rifle. A lot of people were favoring the M1A4. I didn't find that it's bolt action. I did find another bolt action sniper rifle, but it was pretty solid up until I got this Scar H, and I found it to be a lot better. So this is a 20-round marksman's rifle, semi-auto marksman's rifle, and it is very good. You can fire very fast with this. So that means it works well in a pinch at close to medium range, and then that long range headshot bonus is still incredible. You can still two-shot a lot of enemies like that, and it's very easy to line up those headshots with a little bit of practice on the aim, obviously. So this thing is pretty damn solid, not to mention that it does have, if I could find it in here again, menu system in this game is a little atrocious. Each hit has a 3% chance to apply a bleed status. This one I got here with this talent, pretty nice in PvP. That, you know, a couple shots, you know, if that happens, then it's going to cause a lot of problems to an enemy trying to hide behind cover or something like that. And then the 20% improved stability as well, which wasn't too hard to get as well. So that makes it even a little bit easier for that sustained fire at kind of like mid-range. So an enemy just like, you know, kind of just slightly around a corner, you can pop around, and you can even hip fire with this sometimes, go for the no-scoping action, and works pretty well. But I was pretty happy with that. Mod-wise, I found this. I've been told this is pretty rare. Not too many people, I think, found one of these, but this is actually an upgrade scope. So there's a lot of sights that are like 4x and things like that. You can zoom in on them, but they're not very good for sniping. But typically, what you're going to be using is just the scope that comes with it, a 12 times one, like which is just headshot XP. But I managed to find this one that's an extra 5% headshot damage, which is what you want. Like, Marksman's Rifle is all about getting them headshots, and a bonus 3% crit chance, and if you get a crit headshot, it's massive damage, so pretty happy with that. Magazine weapon damage, it's all about stacking as much damage in that single hit as possible. I was mostly using this weapon to get the jump on enemies in PvP, so very nice for that. The grip, not too big a deal, just the accuracy, stability, just want that just because there's not too much else you can get there, and using that crit chance muzzle for that, you know, that once every now and then crit shot headshot, that, you know, that crit headshot which takes enemies out. Really nothing special to say about the pistols. There's a real lack of pistols in the beta. Military M9 is pretty much the best one you could get, and unfortunately there's no modding for pistols in the beta. These ones can't really have mods, and I didn't find any muzzle. Well, actually I did find a muzzle. I lie, I just haven't checked in a while. Well, there you go. I could have put a muzzle on this thing. Not that it's actually going to make much difference. But there you go. Not too much actually going on with pistols. Another weapon that I want to give an honorable mention that I was using up until I found that scar was the Vector 45 ACP, and slightly after that, the converted SMG. These submachine guns are amazing. This thing is incredible. Like, this is unmodded here, but you'll see that this thing is... That's not me moving my cursor. That is just how stable this weapon is. So, in PvP, like when you're first like getting started out, then just being able to unload the entire clip into an enemy like that super accurately without any attempt to you know, correct for recoil is pretty damn good, and it's actually pretty high damage too. Not to mention, if you put on magazine size, because it's only 20 rounds is probably its weak point, but if you put fire rate magazine size on this thing, it is freaking beastly, so good. So I had a lot of fun with this for quite some time. And you can see how that is going to be pretty devastating for enemy players. It's just such a good feeling weapon. It even works pretty well for burst fire at medium range. I've done hospital runs with this thing, and I had it be, you know, it's really good. You can run up, hip fire on enemies extremely accurately, no problem. You can get that for the slightly longer ranges, those scoped in fire, extremely accurate. Accuracy on this thing is very low on the actual rating, but because you're doing this in such close range all the time, it really doesn't matter, so the stability becomes the main thing. And although the bar is not looking very impressive, you can easily see how stable it is, and that's what you want in an SMG. Any sort of like extra kick in an SMG is like the opposite of what you want, but that is... I had a lot of fun with this weapon, big fan of it, so at launch, if you get a chance to play around with the Vector or the converted SMG, I like the Vector more. The converted SMG is a little higher DPS, then definitely give it a go. Alrighty guys, hopefully you enjoyed this look at the gear, just kind of a bit of a rundown of some of the things you can expect to look for, and maybe hopefully you learned something a bit about modding weapons, what things to look for, and so on. So guys, keep an eye out. I've got a lot of Division videos coming your way, a lot more in-depth ones from all of the footage and things I recorded in the beta, and of course leading up to launch I'll be releasing a lot of those, and I'm looking forward to the launch for the game. I think this game has a lot of potential. Everything I saw in the beta, apart from some criticisms I'll go into in some of the videos, was pretty damn good. Gives me pretty good hope for the game. Just a bit concerned about that longevity, but we'll see how that pans out. So that's going to be it for now. I'm ZiggyD, and thanks for watching.